Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Ghosts of Bacon. I'm your host, Jake Roberts. Doing things a little differently tonight. I decided to not use the intro video simply because the sound the last couple of times has just been deafening, and I'm still working on trying to get that modulated so it doesn't blow people's eardrums off there at home. Um, Really excited about this episode tonight, gang, because my guest, as many of you know, from the um, event that I planned here on Facebook, is none other than my friend and fellow author and Oak Island researcher, David Neisen. And so David is a lot of fun, and you're really he has some just amazing information, and you guys are really going to enjoy it. And I want to give it before we do, I want to give a few shout outs here to the members of the Keys of the Rosy Cross group on Facebook. If you haven't joined, please do so. If you haven't hit the like button on this podcast here on YouTube, please do so. I appreciate all of you regulars. I see all of the usual folks in the house, but I want to give a shout out to Jason Mercer, who has been, posting some really stellar work in our Facebook group, and Z Zantlo. You have been the glue that's been holding the group together in my absence, and I appreciate you more than you realize. So, without any further ado, everyone, please welcome my friend David Neeson
Hello.
to the podcast. So, David, you're on, my friend. Welcome to the podcast. Really excited to have you here. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while, and when you told me that your book was finished, I was more than excited. And thank you for the advanced copy. I appreciate that. Oh, and I can't help but notice, but I must have interrupted you while you were busy.
Well, these things take forever to make them grow right. And I have just got into it, and it really helps deal with my stress for finding all the answers at Oak Island. So let me just get my favorite ones over here off to the side so they won't be in the way.
So for the viewers who are watching, they don't recognize what you're doing. Exactly what are those plants that you're trimming, David?
Bonsai.
Bonsai trees. Everyone see the bonsai trees?
Yeah, we have a purple bonsai. We have a blue bonsai. We have a pink bonsai. And we have a green bonsai. And I don't know why they call them bonsai, but I'm finished with my gloves and my scissors, and I can turn my attention to you. But
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I really do.
If you don't mind, I have a few shout outs I'd like to do as well.
Absolutely. Please do.
First of all, I want to thank Adam Thomas. He recently has got involved with my research, and he and his father sent me the palm trees that are in the back here, and they've been critical to my research. So I want to thank Adam, because without his support and help in that manner, I don't know if I could have come up with this book.
That's phenomenal. Well done, Adam. And as usual, he's been instrumental in my work as well. So that's a guy who's in the midst of things for sure.
Thanks. The second person I'd like to give a shout out to, or homage, I think it's French, Texas we say kudos, is Jason Mercer. Made the mistake of going over to his house one time, and he drives this Jeep like a madman. But while I was there, he did to me what he does to all these other artists, and he mercerizes you. And I could breathe better. I was a little stiff for a while, but over here on this side, I have where I've been mercerized, and I appreciate the graphic that he sent me to show me exactly what he did to me. I don't know what it means. Like I said, I feel better, generally speaking, but maybe he can explain it to the group one of these days.
I'll have to have him on here in the next couple of weeks.
Great, because maybe he could point out what all this stuff means. But anyway,
Well, he seems to be focused on your left eye. Usually it's the right eye, but that's really interesting. He focused on the left.
well, I am blind in my left eye.
That explains it.
That must explain.
That explains everything. Yeah.
And then finally,
Well, hold. You know what? I'm going to pop out so that you're full screen, and
okay,
that way everyone's going to be able to see this really well. I'm going
all
to
right.
take the backstage here.
So, in honor of Z Zantlo and all the tremendous work that she does, I wanted to just, like I said, pay homage to her and thank her for what she's done for me in the books that I've researched and created. Yes, she complains about the way I write them and my grammar and punctuation, but other than that, she's really fantastic. So I thought we ought to recognize the work that she has done within the group. And here is a chart which helps identify the things that she has done. She has aliases of Sir Francis Bacon as determined by Z Zantlo. Now, here we have Francis II, King of France. Here we have Queen Elizabeth, Walter Raleigh, King James, Mona Lisa, Catherine de' Medici, Queen Mary, Queen of Scots, and my favorite, William Shatner. Now, I'm going to put this a little bit closer so everyone can see the fantastic work. It's really amazing how she can spot right away how Francis Bacon is involved in these images. So, Z, I want to thank you, and I look forward to some more work that you do.
That was every bit as good as I thought it would be. And I love the T-shirt, my friend. Yes.
Yes.
Go by so fast. Oh my gosh. So we have
and this phrase, when I bought your book, I too many words in it. I couldn't understand what the hell you were saying about key this and key that. So I flipped through it. I saw these fancy pictures of that Francis Bacon drew or Samuel de Champlain. And that's when I saw the palm trees. And that's when I realized I was barking up literally the wrong palm tree in my research. And these words that you started to decode that made it all possible. So thank you, Jake, for straightening me out on that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, you're very welcome, my friend. And I knew tonight was going to be a lot of fun, but my face and stomach are going to hurt for a little while. I don't know if you... And so there you go, Tom. There's the extra fiber in your literary diet that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw it while you're presenting, but Jason, thank you very much. And Z commented on how he mercerized David. Well done. And Tom Burns, of course, likes the fact that you mentioned Shatner because he is Canadian, eh?
And he's old enough to fit the group.
Absolutely. And Adam, he gave you a shout out, and there's his shout out to you that it's a quality shirt, 100%.
Yeah.
So
I got the fiber from the palm trees in the back that he sent me.
Right. Fantastic. Well, listen, so I've been able to, I haven't made it all the way through your book. Like you said, I got it, I don't know, 4 days ago. And so as I started, what I am always impressed by with your work is it's just hard science, right? You and I have had this conversation before about that a theory is just a theory, as the guys on Oak Island say. But what you do is a science, and I have a hard row to hoe when I tell people that what I've been doing is a science, but because so much shoddy work has been done in that area. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We just kind of plunge ahead and do what we do. So, do you want to get into before we jump into your presentation? Do you want to just tell folks how you got started in this? A little bit about your background.
Well,
How do you,
my Facebook page is a bunch of lies. Okay, I found out that you're not supposed to tell the whole world about yourself because people will attack you. So I added a bunch of colorful things. But my background professionally is as a SIGINT Intel analyst that worked at NSA. And I did that while I was in the service. And then when I got out of the service, I performed the same functions through other government contractors until peace broke out in the world and the Berlin Wall fell down. Bill Clinton decided we no longer needed to spy on the Soviet Union, or now Russia. So I lost my job. I created a wood nickel manufacturing company. Became the second largest manufacturer in the world with a new printing process. I don't know if you could see what a wood nickel looks like. Gee, I'll never.
there you go. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And anyway, so we became the second largest manufacturer of wood nickels, and it's a true story. This is not a lie.
This is not your Facebook page. This is real David Neisen right here.
This is true. I had a heart attack. My wife said, "Okay, enough of that stuff." I sold the business to a toy company, which had a large contract with Disneyland at the time. They really wanted the printing process that I devised. And so then I was a house dad, raised my kids, board member at the school district, this, that, whatever. And I started watching Curse of Oak Island. And I said, those aren't oak trees. And that's what got me hooked on researching. And 1,500 pages later,
yes,
I've gotten the bug. And this fourth book is really a Cliff Notes version of Volume 3. But since no one's reading Volume 3, I thought I would spell it out in the first 2 pages. And then the rest of the information is some new evidence as well as an artificial intelligence interpretation of what we discovered.
Right.
So watching the TV show, prior to my research, I have no botanical experience. I passed biology in high school by selling insects to my classmates to try to get laid. And that didn't work. And this is true. It didn't work, but I made a lot of money. So
I was gonna say, did you make any money? That's
yes,
the important part.
Lots of money. So that's my only biological or biology background. So I would argue that not knowing a damn thing allowed me not to have preconceived notions of what it could be or should be or would be. And unfortunately, the Oak Island story is filled, it's awash with partial truths, half truths, lore, and legend. And it's very hard to be deducing from a terrestrial topic like botany,
right,
what is true and what is not true. And so in my third book, I actually went looking for a way to say, I did the scientific method to prove my stuff. But the problem is you can't use a scientific method on ancient activity. So I was lucky to find out that pathologists created a new way. It's called the forensic scientific method. And so I squeezed all my data through that process, found a lot of holes, a lot of errors, but it produced and it validated the research that I did find. So book number 4, which is coming out as soon as Hammerson Peters gets married, waiting on him. He's my publisher. It's really a Cliff Notes version. And like I said, there's new information, historical information, and I even have more data on the why. And maybe we can get to that later. But
yeah, I really hope to kind of dial in on that for sure. I couldn't agree with you more about what you just said in terms of, not being an expert in your field, but learning as you go. You don't have any preconceived notions, which is what I did with, cryptology and cryptanalysis was a small hobby of mine, a passing interest. And then when I read Peter Amundsen's book, I said, I want to dig into this because I've always believed that, Shakespeare's plaque that you're wearing on your chest has a transposition cipher in it, and I wanted to prove it. And COVID gave me the opportunity to do that with the COVID lockdowns, and so I had some extra time on my hands, and that's when I did what I did, and it worked. And so I really was painstaking about making sure I was using tried and true cryptanalysis techniques. I read, the book, a couple of books and speeches by William and Elizabeth Friedman, the mother and father of, well, the modern NSA where you worked, and it was jaw dropping how much I learned, and then I later learned how much the Francis Bacon Society despised those two because they're so good at what they do, and so I eventually became a very um, big fan of them, frankly. And so I really followed they left behind advice on how to move forward with this type of research in a scientific way. And so I just followed their recommendations. And then I followed my understanding of Bacon's ciphers and the clues he left behind. I just followed them where they led me. And so it's difficult when, you suddenly find yourself looking at evidence, scientifically produced evidence that runs directly counter to, particularly the Oak Island narrative.
or runs directly into a popular narrative that suddenly basically contaminates your work because, oh yeah, Knights Templar, gee, where have I heard that before? And I would have preferred really to run into some local yokel or whatever, but that wasn't the case, and it surprised me. And again, my book, the reason why it has so many sources referenced in it is because I don't know what I'm talking about, but I found the people who did, and
Yes.
I contacted them. And so, there are maybe 70, 80 scientists of different fields that are in this book and have responded, or their documents prove the points that I'm making here. So that's how.
Once again, it's not just you saying it.
Right.
That's yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Reproducibility.
Of the data.
Right. And that's another reason why you and I had kind of become such kindred spirits, I think, is we've had the same experiences when it comes to the way we did our research, and then all of a sudden we have other people come in and it runs counter to, as you said, the popular narrative, and yet here it is, and we're still saying it. And so you mentioned that there are a lot of opinions already out there, and one of the things that you kind of had to push back against, I guess you would say, not really push back against, it was um,
Prove
when
the negatives.
yeah, because when it comes to, they decided that, well, we had some people analyze it, and it's coconut fiber, period, done. Um,
And,
and
and
so
I believe that too. I mean, volume number 3 was about to go to press to prove where that coconut fiber came from. Only
yeah,
one place on the planet, until I saw your book and
sorry.
another article that I read, and wham. So, one, I had to do a 180. And even though experts would say, oh, no, it's this, or oh, no, it's that, and you pay attention to what they actually say, and you realize, well, he didn't say that. We assumed he said that. Even the whole concept about coconut fiber and dunnage, if people actually listened to what that statement was, he said it wasn't coconut fiber. It was a fiber from the Far East that was used as dunnage. But
Yes,
somehow they amalgamated together and it became coconut fiber was used as dunnage. And it never, ever was used as dunnage.
right,
So, but I had to prove that negative. Anyway,
absolutely.
so I hear you.
Yeah, and I know how that feels, and so and what people need to realize with this book, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw a couple of the comments up here. Barbara, oops, that was Brent.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, right there. Barbara, love David's book. It's science, and you know what, Barbara, that's really the most key point here. That's what it's all about. And Brent's, of course.
So do you want to?
Yeah. And again, Tom is echoing, knowing where to find the answers is just as important as knowing the answers 100%, my friend.
And in volume 3, I had a whole chapter of where those answers were wrong. Historical answers where they said, oh, yeah, the Romans ate coconut. No, they didn't. Oh, yeah, Cleopatra had coconut in her perfume. No, they didn't. So history itself was replete rather, with errors, with wrong things that people compiled and put together, and voila, everything was coconut. So, so not only you fighting and trying to find, because one scientist, we'll get into the term lacuna, and this is where AI got it wrong, because lacuna read a document that the writers knew what they were talking about, but the AI read it as lacuna/lumen, and so it made an assumption which was incorrect. I thank God I had asked AI to provide the sources of where their answers came from, and found out why they got the wrong answer. I went back, explained it to AI, and then they made the big to-do after the fact that, yeah, it could not be coconut fiber. But we can get to that.
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of us have faced over the years when we're doing this research, is that something like that, it gets inserted into the narrative and it becomes a narrative. And,
Yes.
and the narrative all of a sudden, and this, I mean, this happens obviously, and you know this all too well, having been an intelligence worker, that the narrative often becomes just accepted fact when it's really just a narrative.
Especially the very first narrative.
Yes.
People hear the first narrative and that's it. Even if the story corrects itself down, no, it's not. No, I heard. No, they said. And it's like moving heaven and earth to prove that that is not factually true.
Yeah, yeah. People really embrace those cognitive biases that, like you said, that very first imprint, right? And it's really tough to get by that. Yeah, well said, my friend. So, do you want me to go ahead and get to your slide?
Let's slide 1, and then unless someone has a question, I'll just kind of briefly put an end to that topic if I could.
Sure. Let me go ahead and put that on screen for us, and I'm going to pop out, and you can just go ahead if you want to move on to the next screen. You can tell me, and I'll do it that way.
Sure.
All right.
I'll try not to be too long and lengthy. So in this screen, I'm just trying to jot down some of the minor things. I'm trying to show the audience the time zone, because timing is critical to the proof of what I'm trying to say here. All right, getting back to the island. We know that coconut fiber was found in both on the 6th platform in the money pit, or shaft 1, and as well as on top of the filtration system. It really doesn't take a genius to do the calculations to show that they had excavated 1.5 metric tons of this mystery fiber. In all of my books, I further the formula to demonstrate how we got to that figure. A lot of people think that, no, it was just a little piece here in Smith's Cove and just a little piece here. No, it was tons of fiber. The radiocarbon dating of the 5 samples. Now, these specimens, there were 3 from that BTAC or Beta Labs did, 2 officially, and 1 the show aired in their first season, 2nd episode. They all came from Beta Labs. The other 2 came from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. And these 2 players are critical in proving the truth about the fiber. So the range in the carbon dating is between 1185 and 1330. Now, this excludes a 6th sample, which is in the Les McPhee archives, and that was of 850 to 855. That's considered an outlier and is tossed out. So again, 1185 to 1330 is the radiocarbon range of the 5 specimens. All right, correction of the fiber. Thought to be, people may not know this, but the coconut is a seed. Around the coconut is a husk. And that husk is where this fiber comes from. It takes 10 to 12 months, back in those days, to break down this husk into pliable, usable fibers. That retting process has to be done in warm salt water. It can't be done inside the swamp. It has to be done in tropic waters. And like I said, it takes 10 to 12 months for this process to go through. It changes the fiber. And so when we look at plant fiber, we can tell, oh, that's coconut coir, spelled C-O-I-R, because actually it's pronounced care, but everyone says core, at least I do. So it's core. It identifies that fiber very clearly, and we'll get to that in a minute. So we've identified the fiber as the date palm mesh sheath fiber on a date palm tree. So if you were to look at most palm trees, in between their fronds, because palm trees don't have branches. We call them branches, but they're really fronds. They actually grow from the trunk straight out. Those are the branches or the leaves known as fronds. And in between, when these branches first start growing, they grow a wiry fiber all around, and it's there to protect the trunk of the palm tree. Palm tree produces it. It keeps rodents and insects away from the new, fresher frond that's growing, as well as it creates a thermal barrier from the heat where these palm trees live. So it's very important in not frying the growth of the palm tree, because the palm tree only grows at the very top. You're not going to get anything growing down that stem. You could get, and you will get with date palms, what's called a palmette. It's its little baby. It's a clone of the larger date palm. It grows at the base and only at the base. So, okay, so now we know it's not Cocos nucifera, which is a palm tree. It's the Phoenix dactylifera, another palm tree. How do we get to the Judean date palm? What test do you use to figure that out? And because this palm has been extinct up until 2010, they have to use a genotype and morphometric identification. That has to do with the size of the seeds and other aspects, because the Judean date palm is a cultivar or a variety. So you may have heard of other dates like Medjool and some others that I don't remember the name. There are 27 varieties. Judean date palm was one of those varieties, but it had a significant history and was renowned through the Roman and the biblical period, which becomes very important down the road. So the third category is a date palm botanical history. This date palm, the Judean date palm, only grew in Jericho, the South Jordan River Valley, the Dead Sea area, in a very hot area that was very sandy, very salty, and it's 1,400 feet below sea level. This is the only place that it grew. Yet date palms require extensive amounts of water. So that'll get to how it dies out. It was introduced to the exclusive grow zone between 1100s and 500 BC. Primarily, it was brought from Babylonia by the exiled Jews had been captured by King Nebuchadnezzar, and then were released by the Persian king Cyrus, I believe, if I'm getting this right. And when he let them free, they had been in Babylonia, and they basically had studied what's called, oh God, I always pronounce this word wrong. It's pheniculture. It's Phoenix CI culture. And it's basically how to raise date palm trees. Believe it or not, there are boy date palm trees and female date palm trees. The wind blows the male sperm over onto the female, and now we have babies, the palmettes. but no one cares about the male. They don't grow any dates. So it's the female date palm that becomes the most important thing. All right, moving on with the time frame.
Did you freeze up there, David? Are you still there? I think we might be having some connection issues. I'm going to, let's see. David, if you can hear me, you could probably disconnect and reconnect, and we'll see what happens. I'm just going to throw up some of the comments I see here. Barbara, I actually wrote that down, 1.5 metric tons. And like David said, and the thing he's really pointing out here is that it wasn't coconuts at all. And I know, when the first time he told me that coconuts were a seed, I thought about it. I started laughing. I said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "That makes so much sense." But we don't think of it that way, right? And Sandy's asking, is it possible for Oak Island to have had connections to the Hyperborean Islands? Great question, Sandy. I don't know the answer to that. Interesting. And Renee is pointing out, she rewatched the interview with Randall Sullivan and Marty. Marty said that the coconut fiber was all over the island. I was very surprised to hear that. We all were, Renee. Yeah. When he said that, it was really pretty astounding. So, right, Stan? He popped out. I'm waiting for him to reconnect, and as soon as he does, I'll throw him back up here. And so, Z with some amazing. The Templars were forced out of Acre, May 18, 1291. Do you think the Judean date palm fiber came to the island then? I'm going to save this question on the side, Z, for when David comes back, because he does have some very specific ideas about that, I believe. Yeah, Tommy, that is what the theory is, what we all believe was going on there. And when you read David's book, everyone, the way he backs this up, and in the next few slides when we get to them, I think you're going to be pretty floored in terms of what is really going on there. Oh, we have David back here. I'm going to bring him up.
We have a large storm blowing through.
Oh, okay. We thought it was something.
Yeah.
With some really great questions coming up here. And so I'm going to throw this one up here for you, David, from Z. She said the Templars were forced out of Acre in May 18, 1291. Do you think the Judean date palm fiber came to the island then?
Came to the island. No. Time. They left Jericho, which is where the fiber came from, when they went to go fight in the Battle of Hattin, and they got decimated. And by then, the only two knights that were left from that particular region fled to Jerusalem to fight that battle as Saladin swept through the Jericho area. So, though there are date palm cultivars that were on the coast of Israel and the Levant area, and they grew in Cyprus and they grew in southern Spain. They weren't the same cultivar, and they're considered what's called soft fruit or soft dates. They last maybe a week. Semi-dry dates last a month, and dry dates last several months. So now she's asking specifically, did they take the fiber then through Akko to Cyprus or out the door? I don't think so, because that's 1291. If we look at the time frame that they were in Jericho, they left in 1187. So, and by then, most of the trees had died out. So, where were you going to get the fiber, which you would need plantations full of trees to extract the fiber? So I believe they extracted the fiber much earlier when they, Zena Halpern says that the Templars were actually operational in 1104.
Yep.
We know it to be 1118. I know that the patriarch of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre owned Jericho lock, stock, and barrel in 1098. So that's a long time till 1187 to be collecting fiber. Does that answer her question?
I think so. And again, great question. Um, and yeah, Brent, I think you're right. We know that it wasn't all over the island, but I
The
think
island. Okay, I was thinking of Cyprus, the island.
right.
You meant all over Oak Island.
Yeah, that's what Brent was saying. That's not all over the island. He was talking about. You were talking about Cypress Island, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So this gets into the why, and I believe there are 3 locations on Oak Island that you would find the fiber. One
Right.
is that we found the fiber at 2 locations, and you say, well, how do you know those were locations? Well, they were the 2 of the underground man-made constructs. And the interesting thing about the fiber being found there, we went through dozens of potential utilitarian or functional reasons why they would have this fiber. Now it makes more sense if it's coconut fiber. There's a little bit few more properties that could be in play here, but not where you found them, because what did they do on the 6th platform of the money pit? There's no filtration necessary there. I mean, we know that at 30 feet, nothing grows below 30 feet. There's no moisture that's getting down there. There's no oxygen. So at 60 feet, the fiber is not doing anything but it's covered the entire base of that platform. Same thing with the filtration system at Smith's Cove. It laid on top of 5 inches of eelgrass, which was the filtration medium. So why would you go all the way to wherever you went to get this, to sprinkle it over the exact same area that you already have a filtration system, and then put sand on top of it? So, and as Francis Bacon shows us in the Champlain images, there are 3 palm trees. Each one has a unique size, and they relate to the size of the entrances to these man-made constructs, which means that there's the 3rd one that's missing. Having said that, I believe that the fiber was brought there for symbolic reasons. That if you're a Knights Templar and you're worshiping King Solomon and the temple structure, what did you see? What did you read? Oh, they had on the inside the date palm trees on the wall with the cherubs. And then if you read carefully, they talk about how the filigree, the golden filigree was all over the date palms. Well, what is the filigree? Filigree is thread or string or rope or chain,
right,
in gold. And what's it mimicking? It's mimicking the hair, the fiber on the date palm tree. Just as Mohammed looked at the date palm tree and said it was a perfect symbol of man, down to include the hair. And so the Knights Templar, they didn't have anything to take from the temple. It was all gone. You couldn't take the palm tree that's going to die. You could take some of the dates, but they're going to only last for so long. And then you got the palm fronds. Well, they get crispy critter after a while. Okay, so they're not going to last very long. What do you have? You have this fiber,
Yep.
And even that fiber gets spread around in bulk. It's not made into mats or rope, or we didn't find any rope or other items made from it. It's just there to tell us the sanctity of what lies below. It's you know what a mezuzah is, Jake?
Say that again.
Do you know what a mezuzah is?
You told me before, but go ahead.
So going all the way back to the Exodus, the Jews, as you know, marked their doorposts with blood to tell the angel of death to pass over. Well, in a modern day, we have a mezuzah that we mount on the side of the doorpost of a house. You'll see it. It's got a little scroll with the Shema prayer inside of it, okay, which is back over here against the wall. But so I believe the Knights Templar looked at the fiber as a to find way of saying that what's below is holy and sacred, and the palm tree had been a deified god at one time in the Levant, and here King Solomon had it inside his temple. So damn it, we're going to take it, and we're going now. Maybe Gorjan Mall is right, and he's got the Moses' menorah there. Well, if he's got Moses' menorah, he can only burn certain things in that lampstand, and that's either date palm fiber or priestly robes.
Right.
And I don't think they had in very many priestly robes they could abscond with when they left with the menorah. So those are the two only reasons that I see that the palm fiber was found in those two locations, and that there will be a third. And when they find that third, there'll be palm fiber there, date palm fiber.
I think you're right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share your image.
Sure, we can go to number 2 just so we can knock some of these out quickly.
Okay, I'll pull myself out.
All right, so I'm trying to go through this quickly before the thunderstorm electrifies me. So people say, oh yeah, but coconut fiber looks very special, very unique. And those miners all looked at it and said, it's got to be coconut fiber. Well, this is what dwarf palm fiber looks like, and date palm fiber and jute fiber. They're, other than color, and jute comes in 4 different colors. So, it's easy to assume you have one thing when it's really another. And it takes scan electronic microscopy to identify what it is you're looking at. Next. This is the smoking gun. It's on the cover of the book. You've all seen it before. It's what shows us the difference and why it's not coconut fiber. And the next slide will show it as well. If you notice on the right-hand side, there's a drawing here. And the drawing depicts like a cross-section of what the fiber looks like. You have these little holes. Those are lumen. Then you have this big hole, and that's a lacuna. It's a difference. The lumen are part of the cell, the microfibril cell structure, and they open and they close, as you see, and they have different things in them. Whereas the lacuna is a gap, a void, a hollow that was built to be there. It's prominent on coconut fiber. It doesn't exist on date palm fiber, which is why the coconut fiber floats, because the air gets in that lacuna, and that's what makes coconut fiber a unique plant fiber that floats in salt water, that hole. Now, the blue images at the bottom was in the first year of Crucible Oak Island, episode 2. They took the newly found fiber over to Acadia University and had our biologist, Dr. Evans, examine the two, and he does them separately. One is the actual fiber that they had just found, Dana Hensky found out in Smith's Cove, and the other one was what the fellowship brought and said, oh, we know that this is coconut fiber. Well, it doesn't say in the show. How did you know that? Who said that? Who told you that? Normally, the biologist would be the one who provides the default sampler to prove or to compare with the one that you brought. Notice how both of these do match, but they match to the date palm, not to the coconut palm. So Dr. Evans didn't declare this to be coconut fiber. He declared that because they looked alike, they must both be coconut fiber. And our evidence will show that it wasn't. He got it wrong. So we can go to the next slide. This slide is from the original Woods Hole Oceanographic report from their 1995 observation on Oak Island. And they too brought home coconut fiber. And they too looked at SEM imagery. Now, obviously, back in 1996, SEM imagery was hard to see. The bottom two pictures, as you can see by the notation, is the Oak Island fiber. And in the circles, do you see a big hole? But if you go back up and look at the one above, this is the default sampler that they got from their own herbarium. This is coconut fiber. And look, you can see the lacunas. So why did the experts who looked at this, both the internal to Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute and the two experts, one of which we contacted as well, why did they say, well, we can't really tell, but we believe it's palm fiber? Let's go to the next screen. This is why. So we have, this is a cross section, a SEM cross section of different plant fibers. And I want to point out that on the top row, you have date palm. So let's look at all the palms. Date palm there. On the next row down, you could see eelgrass, but that doesn't look like it. It looks like a flat, pathetic hamburger. You see coconut over here on the second row at the end. It also has a very large lacuna, but notice all the other lumen. It looks like a whole bunch of straws inside a hose, except for the very center. Let's now go down and look at the windmill palm. Well, that looks just like the date palm to a degree. It's all those lumens, but no lacuna. Passava is also a palm, but they basically cut the hell out of this piece. So it's kind of hard to see. But let's go over to the oil palm. That's another good example where you have all the lacuna, all the lumen, but no lacuna. So when they couldn't identify it beyond palm, here are 4 examples why, yeah, they could all be one of those. But the coconut obviously was different than the rest. Okay, so there are 2,600 species of palm. Now, how did David go through 2,600 palms? Well, it was quite easy. There were only 3 species of palm that grew in the Fertile Crescent during this time period, and they were each represented by 1 species. So you had the date palm, the Argoon palm, and the dome palm. Many people misconstrued the dome palm to be a coconut palm, not because the tree looks like a coconut palm tree, but because its fruit, when cut open, looks a lot like a coconut, except that it's about the size of your fist, and they don't get any larger. Now, I didn't know who Muhammad Ali was. I was thinking, gee, I thought he was a boxer. But no, there was a guy who became in charge of Egypt in 1805, and he introduced 18 species, of which only 8 feather palms and 2 fan palms survived. Why do I bring this up? Because there weren't very many palms in this part of the world. And as you see by the map down in the right-hand corner, the P. dactylifera, the pink or red color, that is the palm that we're talking about. The other species were not anywhere close to what we're at. What else can I tell you? So here we talk about well, I already mentioned that. So here's a picture of an exact sugarcane being grown below the palm trees. Now, this isn't in Jericho. This happens to be in Saudi Arabia. But it shows you that it was common for them to grow more than one crop at a time. The palm trees were up ahead. The date palms were up high. They grew sugarcane. They grew balsam rather. They grew pomegranates. They grew all kinds. They even grew bananas in Jericho because they had the water source. All right, running down the Templars and the Hospitallers dealing with sugarcane. As I mentioned earlier, the Archbishop of the Church of Holy Sepulchre, he raked in 5,000 gold coins a year on the agribusiness in Jericho alone. The Knights Templar operated. We know the Knights Templar operated from 1116 because of documentation. I contend that, and Zena Halperin contends, that there was some type of Templar presence much earlier, or some kind of presence that could have assisted them in acquiring this fiber. The Templars built and operated 3 processing mills. They repaired King Herod aged aqueducts and irrigation system, bringing the water from the 3 springs in the mountains down to this area. The Knights, this is another key thing. So when they get to Jericho and they take over these operations, the Arabs were, and you'll see that in the next picture, they made sugar molds. When you cut up the sugar cane and you boil it, and then you soup it out and pour it into these molds, it will crystallize into sugar. So they would make a hole at the bottom, so the part that didn't crystallize would drip through, and that was basically molasses. Now, they would take the molasses and they would reboil it to try to get more and more of the crystallized sugar out of it. When the Knights Templar showed up, or the Hospitallers in Acre and some of these other locations, there were 43 locations. They said, hey, we don't just want 1 hole, we want 3 holes. Get this molasses out of there as soon as possible so we can repeat the process. We don't have to wait. And they also reshaped the molds. What does this mean? This means that when archaeologists go and look at these sugar cane milling sites, they could tell of the molds that were pre-Crusade period, the molds that were made during the Crusade period, and then the molds that were made later by the Mamluks. And this is crucial because we can now date how much sugar was made, who made it. Did they import them from Italy? No, they made them from materials right there in that area. And the final thing that is very important about this is that they found in these molds date, fruit, kernel, fatty acids. And that meant that they were also boiling the date fruit from the Judean date palms and making honey. Now, they call it salon in Israel, but it's a type of honey made from the date fruit. So while the Knights Templar and the Hospitallers were in the Holy Land, it was their most profitable business. There was no tithing. They were not taxed. They had their own export-import operation going on. They made tons of money off of sugar. The Templars used it to make money in Europe, while the Hospitallers used it as medicine to treat the ill that they were assigned to take care of long before the Templars were created. Next. Okay, here are examples of those molds on the right-hand side. I'm going to kind of go through this quickly. The drawings on the upper level, okay, we can go with this one here. So you can see that there are 2 molds. One that's shaped like an upside-down pyramid. It has so many holes, it drips into the lower one, which captures the molasses. The one on the top, it crystallizes. Now, if we zoom out again, the pictures on the top left show you where they're boiling the sugar cane, and here are the molds. They're tipping them upside down to pile up the crystallized sugar, and they have that bullet shape. Well, the images we were just looking at were the version that they used in the Crusades. The Knights Templar, they were in charge of protecting the pilgrims to get to the religious sites, and Jericho became a key location, not only because of the plethora of religious organizations and sites that were down there, but because of the money-making operation in Jericho. Let's see what else. These are some of the images that are in Jericho. This picture here, it shows you the fiber that we've seen on Oak Island and the fiber you just saw, and they're all palm fiber. This is the fir that grows on the brand new palm tree down there on the bottom, and on the left-hand corner are molds that they found all those other pieces are shards of molds. And that was how they could figure out that who created the molds, what the shapes were, and when they were made. So we have proof that the Knights Templar were active in not only making money off of sugarcane, but also date fruit. Now, why is that important? Well, if the Knight Templars or their worker bees are up there getting the dates out of the date fruit tree, that's also where the fiber is. And so they knew of and had to prune from the tree this fiber. So it was an integral part of their operation. And we contend that, therefore, they had plenty of access to this particular fiber. Okay, so now we talk about how it extirpated and goes extinct. I mentioned to you that it was brought from by Jews leaving Babylonia. Jews had become husbandmen who learned the master of the botanical science of phoenicia culture. See, I told you. And when they had fled and they went to Jericho, where they grew this Judean date palm variety. When the Arab expansion happened, the husbandmen were killed or they fled Jericho. And this is when the plantations of fruit, which were well known throughout history, started to die out. Sugarcane came to the Levant around 980 AD and was adopted over lesser crops like barley and wheat because, man, you can make a lot of money off of sugarcane. And so why grow wheat? Well, unfortunately, they ended up importing wheat because they were making sugar and there was nothing to eat other than sugar. The ancient Judean date plantations, which go back in history way before King David and King Solomon, the irrigation had been created and the Knights Templar came and they fixed it and improved it. But Crusader battles, the Saladin's conquest, killing off of the plant husbandry, the people who knew how to take care of the palm trees, and then the Mamluk invasion decimated the plantation agriculture. To make it worse, Jericho is inside the Rift Valley, below sea level. It's earthquake prone. It's very hot. When earthquakes hit, they could damage the irrigation system, which they had done before the Knights Templar got there, which they had to fix. And all of a sudden, you have a whole bunch of plantations which aren't getting their water. Droughts, vermin, locusts, and climate change wipe out the rest of that cultivar. And the book goes into that much more extensively. So now the question is that the Knights Templar were the only people to have access to the number of palms during the radiocarbon period of the fiber found on Oak Island. How else could that have happened? Then they all die off. So who came along and grabbed more fiber, which would have been outside of the radiocarbon period anyway? So it's almost a given. Now, maybe the Knights Templar didn't put it on their backs or in their ships, and they hired a bunch of people to go take it to Oak Island, but they were the ones who acquired it and transported it. And for the reasons we've already discussed, I think they looked at it as a remnant of King Solomon's temple and something they wanted to take to the New Jerusalem in the New World. And it was a key part of their of what they wanted to establish. All right, so this is the why factor. Now, the image in the center is just a drawing based upon a description of King Solomon's temple. You see on the left, you've got the large guardians of the Ark of the Covenant in the middle. You've got the steps, you've got the showbread, and you've got the date palms illustrated on the walls, engraved on the walls, along with down below the cherubs. It's on the trunks of those trees that this filigree, that this fancy golden artwork, which only was established in Mesopotamia less than 50 years before King Solomon showed up. So it was a new thing, a new jewelry technique, And so I believe the Knights Templar felt that was as much of the night of the King Solomon's Temple as they were going to get, because they could not get the temple stones. They couldn't find the temple curtain. The fresh date palms were going to go bad real quick. Holy sacred Torah, yeah, maybe they've got a few of those. The cedars of Lebanon, there was no wood to be had by then. The Tamar dates, they would last a few months. The temple menorah, well, Gorjan Mall believes that that's what was there. Sacred oil lamps, okay. And then you had the date palm itself. You couldn't take that with you to the New World, nor could you take the priestly robes or the shewbread, the case of incense, the Nicanor gate, Solomon's porch, Judean. There was nothing for them to take as a remnant of King Solomon's era and divineness other than the date palm fiber of the Judean date palm. And that's basically it. Questions, class?
Wow. Well done, my friend. Let's take a look at the questions. And one of the things that I liked was the way you explained they were growing sugarcane beneath the palms. You know, when you talk about husbandry of plants, I mean, you have Native Americans here in America, you know, cultivating the three sisters together, right? Yeah, you have corn, bean, and uh, squash together.
Yeah, and on island with cabbage. They had two other plants that they grew, and they knew enough about the plants, which bugs killed the other bugs, and what added nutrients into the soil that would help the next. So, and because of our history, we can see where even, Mark Antony gave Jericho to Cleopatra, right. And at that time it was growing opa balsam, which was a perfume ingredient, but it grew below the dates. So as the new plants came and went, they made room for them because this was a place where you could grow stuff because it had the water.
Yeah. Barbara's asking, so the use of palm fiber symbolizing Palm Sunday, perhaps?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting she brings that up because I didn't even make the connection. Palm Sunday? Well, gee, I'm studying palms. What the hell is Palm Sunday about? And then I found out I'm Jewish. Oh, a lulav. A lulav is a date palm branch for Sukkot. I mean, so, and then it unraveled. I mean, my God, the Assyrians worshiped the date palm. And you go back in time, all the way back to the Book of the Dead in Egypt. And I've talked with Adam about this. They were worshiping the date palm.
Yes.
So, and it's even thought to be the tree in the Garden of Eden. So, it depends where you live. But of course, there weren't a whole lot of trees in this area. So if you're going to pick a tree, you're going to probably pick one that's going to feed you and do all these other things.
Completely. I mean, that was one of the things of your work that really struck me. It's just the sheer logic of it. I mean, you just think about it in terms of common sense. What would they need? What would they have available? And how would they fulfill multiple needs with the same thing?
Right. And so as the Templars were there working their fields, they needed the ribs from the date palm trees to build housing because they didn't have trees. Okay. This was not a treed area. And so you built rock walls and you made the roofs out of date palm branches and date palm ribs. And so they learned that they needed this fiber, if nothing else, to operate their sugarcane operations.
Yeah. And you're right, Brent. That was another piece of the puzzle. I mean, we don't have the records of the voyages. Tao was saying, so the fiber was used as a marker rather than as a sealant, or I think you mean maybe a filter, but it still suggests the fellowship are exploring in the right spots. Would you agree with
that? So are we talking caulking? Is that the particular?
I think that what Tao was referring, instead of a sealant, maybe a filter. Like the eelgrass was being a filter.
No. And the reason why I say no is had it been coconut fiber has other properties that make it a filtration medium, but only for large particles. After a while, it gets supersaturated and it can't hold anymore.
Right.
Date palm doesn't have lacuna to absorb, and it's like so the answer is no. And the other reason why the answer is no is that the eelgrass, as they described it, had turned to mush. It had decomposed to the point where it was soppy soup.
Yep.
The fiber didn't do that because both date palm fiber and coconut fiber are primarily made of oh god,
it's like a chitin, isn't it? It's almost like a
lignin, and begins with a C. And I'm going to say carbohydrates, which I know is not right, but neither one of those dissolve without strong acids. And so they could last there forever if they've been retted. And this gets back to the coconut fiber. If a coconut falls out of the tree and someone cuts out the nut and leaves the husk there, it will decompose in 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
If it's retted, then it removes all the pectins and all the enzymes, and it ferments that fiber, and it reinforces that fiber. So now it will last hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 years.
Right. So basically, what Tao is asking, he's agreeing with you. He's saying that it was used as a marker, I guess, as a symbolic.
Yes.
Reference.
Yes. Not as a sealant, because, well, if we go back to the 6th platform, what was it sealing?
Right.
There was dirt on top of it and dirt below it. There was no water at that level, which is another important point. The water from the flood tunnels came down at 112 feet. So you can't argue that the fiber got flushed into the money pit when the water came in from the flood tunnels, because that 6th platform was already gone through. In other words, the water didn't get up that high.
I mean, Jason with his Mercerization of Shakespeare there.
Now I'm a fan right now.
Fantastic analysis. And Sandy is saying she didn't realize how many different types of palms there are. She has a windmill palm in the yard. Oh,
yes,
very nice.
Yes, and I'm sure she's seen the fiber, because all palms have that fiber on there. So it's.
And again, she also kind of said the first time she cut the windmill palm, she was surprised how rigid and string the stem was, even though it was small in diameter.
Yeah,
is that as strong as an oak log? How about that? Very
as
cool.
a matter of fact, when a palm frond dies, it just bends over and it doesn't fall off the tree. It's there to help protect the tree from the extreme heat. So it and the fiber, you have to cut it off. And I've got some slides of men up there, spending all day trying to cut those things. They are a tough cookie to cut.
And Kat's commenting that she saw those some of those cones of sugar were sent to medieval England, and she saw a video demonstrating that. That's really cool, Kat. Thanks.
Yeah.
Did you see how I did that? Cool, Kat.
Cool cat, huh?
Yeah.
Well, then at that point, am I the first person to ever eat bacon on that Ghost of Bacon?
I think you are, actually. I don't even think Jeff Freeman did that, but he doesn't like crispy bacon. He likes it wimpy and it's all sad. So thanks, Stan. Showbread is pronounced showbread, my friend.
That's why Z was always yelling at me, because I can't speak either.
Well, I do that whenever I have a cipher that I've decrypted and words are in Latin or French, and I just completely murder the pronunciation. I just whatever it looks like, that's how I say it. So,
at least the first time.
Well, and Tao is saying this would be a brilliant war room meeting presentation on Oak Island. I couldn't agree more with you, Tao.
Would you like to go ahead?
Hopefully we can see that happen someday soon. Let's see. Stan, again, great presentation and so thoroughly and irrefutably researched as well. Absolutely, Stan. This is what I love about this information is When you first started sending me some of this stuff, I was just flabbergasted. Um, and at that point, I hadn't been all that convinced about the Knights Templar presence, but I've since been proven wrong, and so I eat my hat to that. Barbara, again, well done. Bay palms in reference makes sense, David. Wouldn't the oaks also be a reference as well?
Bingo. No. The answer is now, if you know your biblical history, you know that the sycamore tree is prominent. And in my first two books, I proved that they're not oak trees on Oak Island. Those were European sycamore trees, misidentified as sycomore trees, which are a fig tree that Jesus talked to someone in. And well, I can go on and on. So I'll tell you that do this. Look at Isaac's Point next time you watch Oak Island and show me all the northern red oaks that have been growing there since they planted them when the Restall Lee Lamb was there. Remember that where they went and they planted them?
Yeah.
Okay. You won't find one because they won't live in that environment. So that would go further to prove my point that, and the demonstration that I proved that they were sycamore trees. Have you done any work?
And Daniel, another great researcher in and of himself, you want to know, have you done any work on the cork tree roots?
Yes, I did.
What are your thoughts there?
So this goes back to volumes 1 and 2, and a lot of people suggested a lot of things. I saw the episode where they found the cork tree. I researched the cork tree. It was from the area of the Iberian Peninsula where it would match up fine. What's the problem here? The cork tree could not be those Oak Island trees, the tall, lanky canopy trees. Now, other than the fact of how widespread the root system is on those trees and how they live, I learned enough to prove that they were not the Oak Island oak trees. They never could grow that tall. so they got kicked out early. There was a tree that Courgeon-Mall and I thought were popular, but it was a pine tree that also grows in the Tamar area. And it looked like up on the hill, well, that could be one of those. But further research, no, it could not be. So the cork oak was not the oaks on Oak Island that they referred to. Very in my book, we actually have pictures where you could see the secondary canopy, the taller canopy of those sycamore trees over the other canopy, which had oaks in them. And if you look at even natural pictures or current pictures of Oak Island, and you see Lot 5, do you see any oaks towering above the canopies? No, because those are not oak trees that were once on Isaac's Point in Smith's Cove.
Yeah, great thoughts. Sandy's starting to throw in some cipher work. Thanks, Sandy. And
well, that gets back to your picture in your book with.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's when I saw that picture, that's when I turned around because I realized Francis Bacon, or even if it's Champlain, I don't care who it is, they're telling us something, and that tree doesn't exist in Nova Scotia or in Canada or even in Upper New York. So why is that tree there? And I do believe that it's possible that those images were drawn by Francis Bacon or one of his minions, because the book that Champlain wrote, it clearly states that he's not drawn any pictures. He's leaving that up for others. So the book was, when it was published, someone else had added these images, and there's two of them. There's the one where you had in your book, which is the feet of the Iroquois Indians at Lake Champlain, but in French. And the other one is altercation at Port Fortune, which I think is an interesting term. And it again is another image of 3 palm trees in the right position with and the size and their location in the image itself can be related to the filtration system, the money pit, and this unknown location that is yet to be found.
And I'm still working on exactly what did they know about the date palms, and did they find that there as well, and I recognize it in some way. And is this why he depicted it in this image? That's something I've been wrestling with personally, because for me, it what I was doing was I was identifying, following the clues where they led me, and here I look at this illustration of their uh, uh, battle with the Iroquois, and in the background are three palm trees, and I just started laughing because I had just decrypted a message that said "See trio trees." In the message. And so, when it was talking about the works of Champlain, and I go and I look at it, and right there in the back are three palm trees, and I'm thinking, what are palm trees doing on the shore of Lake Champlain? I've been there hundreds of times in my life, being here, living here in northern New York, and
So there's a clue.
no, all these, and it's an obvious mistake, right? And
Well,
in this
see,
work, obvious mistakes are clues. Yeah,
but had someone, say the Knights Templar or the Vikings, brought a baby palm and planted them there, they would not grow to look like that. They
no,
would grow like a big coppice, a big bush, because that's how palm trees grow. Only when it's a cultivated female palm tree does it grow straight and tall, like you see in that image. So Bacon or whomever drew those images were specifically telling us to go to a cultivated female palm tree, date
right,
palm tree. And as you see in the coconut palm, they go tall and they go way out and they don't look anything like it. So they told us it was a date palm tree, which is why when I had read that article and then saw your picture, I fell out of my chair because I had just seen a date palm tree reference the 2,000-year seeds that it was resurrected by.
that's right. And so Tao says this is priceless. The curse of Sycamore Island. Well done, David, for knocking this out of the ballpark.
Well, listen, I want to show him existing plants that we found on that. So here, I'm holding up this piece of paper, which is ass backwards, but this is my website where the 3 books are there for free. Actually, there are 4 books there. Okay.
So it's www.oakislandmysterytrees.com, all lowercase.
Right. And if whatever his name was, and I can't pronounce the XOO, I can't say
That
showbread.
was pretty good. That was pretty good.
So anyway, if he goes there, that website links you to Race Island in the Scotland Hebrides, where they have that stand of trees, which we believe the trees on Oak Island came from. And that's based upon the botanist that we hired to go there and check out those trees. So granted, I don't have a log from Oak Island to do DNA testing, but it was written about in 1793, those trees. If you read my book, I think you'll be convinced that those were the European sycamores. And the books are for free, so go help yourself. Or you could buy them on Amazon for ungodly price.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah, exactly, Daniel. Purposeful mistake. And let's see. Renee says, so we are no longer acorns, we are button balls. That made my night.
Actually, I talked to Z about this, and you're sweet stones.
There we go.
The date fruit has a stone as a that's what they call the pit of the date fruit, and because they're sweet, I like sweet stones. Though I think Linda, Luke Sampson, and Z don't like that. But anyway, it beats acorns.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, listen, my friend, I want to thank you. This was definitely one for the books. Uh, I think that as more and more people watch, this is going to be one of my top videos, just by the reactions here. And oh, well, Tom has a very good question. So
Artificial intelligence,
so we're stoned,
more or less.
more or less. Yeah, at least some of us, I think, based
Yeah.
a conversation.
Well, let's see. I got my bag of ready-made coconut fiber mixed with date palm fiber.
Perfect. It's a good mix. Yeah, Kat, the school where I used to work, were called the Sandstoners, and they always shorten it to stoners for some reason. So there we go. All right, my friend. We're gonna call it an evening. This is, like I said, been a really, really interesting podcast, and I've been looking forward to it here for the last couple of weeks, and I can't thank you enough. Um, if you want, I'll pop you out here into the green room, and we'll touch base afterwards, and after I wrap things up.
All right, and one last plug.
Do you have anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, just what the picture of the book will look like. Oh, gee, I can't even.
Here, let me move us out. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
100 pages. You can read it while you're in the castle room.
There you go. Perfect. That's David Neisen, my friend. Another great episode. I appreciate you very much, and we're going to be talking a lot, I think, here in the near future.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Opportunity.
Wow. Just mind-blowing stuff, people. It's to be able to do what he did in a very scientific manner and connect all of those dots, and from, basically bringing a plant substance that grows only there in the Middle East, and be able to connect it to Oak Island the way he did, is nothing short of astonishing. And I think this is definitely going to be, well, I don't like saying history changing, because I think it's history revealing. And I think that he just pulled back the veil for a lot of us. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens next. So I want to say to all my regular viewers here who always come live, I want to say, give a big shout out to you all. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Daniel, Stan, Tommy. Great to see you. Tom Burns, Barbara, my sister Penny and Patty. They're here. They're both here tonight. And Kat, Tao, Stan, Easy Gamer, Barbara, everything else I've forgotten. Jason, I saw you here, as well as Adam. Thanks a lot, guys. So once again, you're the ones who make all this happen. So please spread the word about the podcast. Now that the summer is over, and after the end of next month, I think my travels will be over for at least the fall and winter. And so we'll be able to resume our regular twice a month podcast here. So you'll be able to see this more regularly. So Siobhan, thank you very much. Good night to you. And so until next time, people, have a great night, and I'll see you here in a couple of weeks, I hope. Take care, folks. Thanks for joining. Bye. Whoop. I'm still here. Bye, gang.